Hello, true crime enthusiasts. Today's story is not about law or crime. Today's story is about an admirable charity called the Magdalene Dismas Society. This charity is aimed to help support the Gilgo Beach LISK victims and their families are amongst those who helps via this charitable organization. Let us take you through on why the charity is called Magdalene Dismas Mary Magdalene, sometimes called Mary of Magdala, or simply the Magdalene or the Madeleine, was a woman who, according to the four canonical Gospels, traveled with Jesus as one of his followers and was a witness to his crucifixion and resurrection. She is mentioned by name 12 times in the canonical Gospels, more than most of the apostles and more than any other woman in the Gospels, other than Jesus' family. Mary's epithet Magdalene may be a toponymic surname, meaning that she came from the town of Magdala, a fishing town on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee in Roman Judea. The portrayal of Mary Magdalene as a prostitute began in 591, when Pope Gregory I identified Mary Magdalene, who was introduced in Luke 8:2 with Mary of Bethany, Luke 10:39, and the unnamed sinful woman who anointed Jesus' feet in Luke 7:36-50. Pope Gregory's Easter sermon resulted in a widespread belief that Mary Magdalene was a repentant prostitute or promiscuous woman. Elaborate medieval legends from Western Europe then emerged, which told exaggerated tales of Mary Magdalene's wealth and beauty, as well as of her alleged journey to southern Gaul, modern-day France. The identification of Mary Magdalene with Mary of Bethany and the unnamed, sinful woman was still a major controversy in the years leading up to the Reformation, and some Protestant leaders rejected it. During the Counter-Reformation, the Catholic Church emphasized Mary Magdalene as a symbol of penance. In 1969, Pope Paul VI removed the identification of Mary Magdalene with Mary of Bethany and the sinful woman from the general Roman calendar, but the view of her as a former prostitute has persisted in popular culture. The Gospel of Luke chapter 8 lists Mary Magdalene as one of the women who traveled with Jesus and helped support his ministry out of their resources, indicating that she was probably wealthy. The same passage also states that 7 demons had been driven out of her, a statement which is repeated from Mark 16. In all 4 canonical Gospels, Mary Magdalene is a witness to the crucifixion of Jesus, and, in the Synoptic Gospels, she is also present at his burial. All 4 Gospels identify her, either alone or as a member of a larger group of women, as the first to witness the empty tomb, and either alone or as a member of a group, as the first to witness Jesus' resurrection. During Jesus' ministry, Mary Magdalene's epithet Magdalene, literally the Magdalene, most likely means that she came from Magdala, a village on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee that was primarily known in antiquity as a fishing town. Mary was, by far, the most common Jewish given name for girls and women during the 1st century, so it was necessary for the authors of the Gospels to call her Magdalene in order to distinguish her from the other women named Mary who followed Jesus. Although the Gospel of Mark, reputed by scholars to be the earliest surviving gospel, does not mention Mary Magdalene until Jesus' crucifixion, the Gospel of Luke 8:2-3 provides a brief summary of her role during his ministry. Soon afterwards, he went on through cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him, as well as some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward Chuza, and Susanna and many others, who provided for them out of their resources. Luke 8:1-3. According to the Gospel of Luke, Jesus exorcised 7 demons from Mary Magdalene. That 7 demons had possessed Mary is repeated in Mark 16:9, part of the longer ending of that gospel. This is not found in the earliest manuscripts and is possibly a 2nd century addition to the original text, possibly based on the Gospel of Luke. In the 1st century, demons were believed widely to cause physical and psychological illness. Bruce Chilton, a scholar of early Christianity, states that the reference to the number of demons being 7 may mean that Mary had to undergo 7 exorcisms, probably over a long period of time, due to the first 6 being partially or wholly unsuccessful. Consequently, her devotion to Jesus resulting from this healing must have been very strong. The Gospel's writers normally relish giving dramatic descriptions of Jesus' public exorcisms, with the possessed person wailing, thrashing, and tearing his or her clothes in front of a crowd. By contrast, that Mary's exorcism receives little attention may indicate that either Jesus performed it privately or that the recorders did not perceive it as particularly dramatic. Because Mary is listed as one of the women who supported Jesus' ministry financially, she must have been relatively wealthy. The places where she and the other women are mentioned throughout the Gospels indicate strongly that they were vital to Jesus' ministry, and that Mary Magdalene always appears first, whenever she is listed in the Synoptic Gospels as a member of a group of women, indicates that she was seen as the most important out of all of them. Carla Ritchie notes that, in lists of the disciples, Mary Magdalene occupies a similar position among Jesus' female followers as Simon Peter does among the male apostles. That women played such an active and important role in Jesus' ministry was not entirely radical or even unique. Inscriptions from a synagogue in Aphrodisias in Asia Minor from around the same time period reveal that many of the major donors to the synagogue were women. Jesus' ministry did bring women greater liberation than they would typically have held in mainstream Jewish society. Witness to Jesus' crucifixion and burial. All four canonical Gospels agree that several other women watched Jesus' crucifixion from a distance, with three explicitly naming Mary Magdalene as present. Mark 15:40 lists the names of these women as Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, and Salome. Matthew 27:55-56 lists Mary Magdalene, Mary mother of James and Joseph, and the unnamed mother of the sons of Zebedee, who may be the same person Mark calls Salome. Luke 23:49 mentioned a group of women watching the crucifixion, but did not give any of their names. John 19:25 lists Mary, mother of Jesus, her sister, Mary, wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene as witnesses to the crucifixion. All four canonical Gospels, as well as the apocryphal Gospel of Peter, agree that Jesus' body was taken down from the cross and buried by a man named Joseph of Arimathea. Mark 15:47 lists Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of Joses, as witnesses to the burial of Jesus. Matthew 27:61 lists Mary Magdalene and the other Mary as witnesses. Luke 23:55 mentions the women who had followed him from Galilee, but does not list any of their names. John 19:39-42 does not mention any women present during Joseph's burial of Jesus, but does mention the presence of Nicodemus, a Pharisee with whom Jesus had a conversation near the beginning of the Gospel. Resurrection of Jesus. The earliest description of Jesus' post-resurrection appearances is a quotation of a pre-Pauline creed preserved by Paul the Apostle in 1 Corinthians 15:3-8, which was written roughly 20 years before any of the Gospels. This passage made no mention of Mary Magdalene, the other women, or the story of the empty tomb, but rather credits Simon Peter with having been the first to see the risen Jesus. Despite this, all four canonical Gospels, as well as the apocryphal Gospel of Peter, agreed that Mary Magdalene, either alone or as a member of a group, was the first person to discover that Jesus' tomb was empty. Nonetheless, the details of the accounts differ drastically. According to Mark 16:1-8, the earliest account of the discovery of the empty tomb, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome went to the tomb just after sunrise, a day and a half after Jesus' burial, and found that the stone had already been rolled away. They went inside and saw a young man dressed in white, who told them that Jesus had risen from the dead and instructed them to tell the male disciples that he would meet them in Galilee. Instead, the women ran away and told no one because they were too afraid. The original text of the Gospel ends here, without the resurrected Jesus making an appearance to anyone. Casey argues that the reason for this abrupt ending may be because the Gospel of Mark is an unfinished first draft. According to Matthew 28, verse 1-10, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to the tomb. An earthquake occurred, and an angel dressed in white descended from heaven and rolled aside the stone as the women were watching. The angel told them that Jesus had risen from the dead. Then the risen Jesus himself appeared to the women as they were leaving the tomb and told them to tell the other disciples that he would meet them in Galilee. According to Luke 24-12, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, went to the tomb and found the stone already rolled away, as in Mark. They went inside and saw two young men dressed in white who told them that Jesus had risen from the dead. Then they went and told the 11 remaining apostles, who dismissed their story as nonsense. In Luke's account, Jesus never appears to the women, but instead makes his first appearance to Cleopas and an unnamed disciple on the road to Emmaus. Luke's narrative also removes the injunction for the women to tell the disciples to return to Galilee, and instead has Jesus tell the disciples not to return to Galilee, but rather to stay in the precincts of Jerusalem. Mary Magdalene's role in the resurrection narrative is greatly increased in the account from the Gospel of John. According to John 20, verse 1 to 10, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb when it was still dark and saw that the stone had already been rolled away. She did not see anyone, but immediately ran to tell Peter and the beloved disciple, who came with her to the tomb and confirmed that it was empty, but returned home without seeing the risen Jesus. According to John 20, 11 to 18, Mary, now alone in the garden outside the tomb, saw two angels sitting where Jesus' body had been. Then the risen Jesus approached her. She at first mistook him for the gardener, but after she heard him say her name, she recognized him and cried out, "Rabboni," which is Aramaic for teacher. His next words may be translated as, "Don't touch me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father," or "Stop clinging to me," etc. The latter more probable in view of the grammar, negated present imperative, "Stop doing something already in progress," as well as Jesus' challenge to Thomas a week later. See John 20, 24 to 29. Jesus then sent her to tell the other apostles the good news of his resurrection. The Gospel of John therefore portrays Mary Magdalene as the first apostle, the apostle sent to the apostles. Magdalene Dismas Society and John Ray presented a symposium regarding the current status of LISK and LISK victims. It was held on January 30th, 2024, in the Marillac Hall Auditorium at St. John's University, located in Queens, NY. The real story of several victims, the police, and John Ray's work was disclosed. Several of the deceased victims' family members, as well as current surviving LISK victims, attended. Admission was free. John Ray, who is working alone as Magdalene Dismas's lawyer, has already spent over $30,000 out of his modest funds from his small firm on the LISK case alone. Magdalene Dismas Society takes its name from the former reputed prostitute who stood at the foot of Christ's cross and the good thief who was crucified with Christ, two unlikely heroes. In conclusion, the Magdalene Dismas Society is organized to help the victims and families of LISK and beyond. The link to Magdalene Dismas Society is in the description. Please let us know in the comments what you think. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.